Now, more than 3.5 current and former staff of the fashion retailer Next have won their 6-year legal fight for equal pay in a victory that's estimated to cost the company more than £30 million.
It is the first equal pay claim against a national retailer to reach the final legal stage and secure a win after a court found that Next had indirectly discriminated against women. Megan Owen has this report.
I still really don't believe it's happened. It's absolutely incredible.
22 years working for Next and a 6-year legal battle against it. Helen is now one of the 3,500 retail workers to have won an equal pay claim against her employer.
I've always believed in fairness, and it doesn't seem fair that years and years after the Equal Pay Act came in, when I was actually at school, that women were still earning less than men for similar roles. And I'm a pensioner now, and it's unbelievable that we've had to wait till now for someone to actually recognise that our role is as valuable as a similar role for a man.
The tribunal ruled that Next failed to prove that paying their store workers, 82% of whom are currently women, a lower basic hourly rate than warehouse workers was not sex discrimination. The claimants argued that the difference in basic hourly pay ranges from 40p to £3.13, although Next disputes this range. On average, each retail worker has lost more than £6,000. The payout could cost Next around £30 million. Next is planning to appeal. There are key legal principles at stake here. They say that the tribunal rejected the majority of the claims, but they lost on the key terms that matter to the retail workers. Lawyers representing the workers hope it could create wider industry change.
You've got the big 5 supermarkets bringing similar claims, making similar arguments. They will be paying close attention, and the claimants, the supermarket workers in those cases, will be hugely encouraged. It hasn't been done on this scale and in the private sector before. It's brilliant.
Next has found itself on the wrong side of an equal pay battleground. This ruling could open the door to further action against more retail giants. Megan Owen, BBC News.
Let's talk now to Elizabeth George, who represented the claimant. She's an employment and discrimination barrister and partner at Lead Day. You saw her in that report. Good morning to you. How big a win is this?
Oh, it's big. Yeah, I think you heard the reporter Megan say it's the first time it's been done, and it's got huge significance.
Talk us through the case. What is it that the claimants were alleging happened here? Because people will look at this and say, in a warehouse predominantly staffed by men, in retail predominantly staffed by women, and there were different levels of pay. Just explain where the discrimination came in here.
OK, so this was all about the women saying we're entitled to the same pay because our work is no less demanding. And the law says, well, when that applies, that's right, your employer must pay you the same unless they've got a really compelling business reason why. And crucially, that reason can't be sex discrimination. Well, in this case, the reason was found to be sex discrimination. And that's because we've got 2 really different markets. And Next said, look, we paid the women less because the market rate for them is less. And the market rate for the men is more. Well, that's always been the case, but of course we've got overwhelmingly women in one market and overwhelmingly men. 80% of UK warehouse operatives are men in the other market. And if you're simply just going to follow that pattern, you are overwhelmingly going to disadvantage the women. They're always going to be worse off. So you have to come up with a really a compelling business reason, and it has to be reasonable. And the tribunal said in this case, the reasons that's given is just not good enough.
Next, really keen to point out that the tribunal rejected the majority of the claims. They said particularly when it came to direct discrimination. So you won on the indirect discrimination element. The tribunal expressing serious criticisms of the expert evidence, overwhelmingly accepting Next evidence and witnesses. They will appeal. What happens next?
Yeah, look, they've got a right to appeal, not to be confused with it being right to appeal after 6.5 years. So the we'll go on to remedy now. I say next. They haven't told me they're going to appeal, but I understand they're going to appeal. They can do that. But look, what matters to these women isn't the legal titles and the lawyers arguing about direct, indirect. The lawyers get very excited about that. These women wake up with equal pay in relation to things that really matter: basic hourly pay, and more than that, Sunday premiums, paid rest breaks, all super important.
And we should be really clear as well, the payout that these women will get isn't some sort of big compensation or big windfall. This is just the money that they would have been entitled to, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really important. It's not a windfall. This money should have been in their pockets years ago. They can only go back to 2012. Lots of them have worked there a lot longer than that.
Nonetheless, we expect it will cost Next £30 million in that payout. And you also talk, and we heard in that report, that this is just the first in a number of other cases being brought against retailers. This could really set a precedent, couldn't it?
Yeah, each case has its own particular facts, but there's a lot of overlap, and we've got all the 5 major supermarkets facing similar claims. So yeah, what we can now say is market forces in itself is not enough to justify sex discrimination. And paying these women less is sex discrimination.
Yes, and that boils down to the type of work that is being done. And I suppose that's the difficulty, isn't it? And this was part of the case of proving that this is equal work.
Yeah, Next never accepted it was equal work, so we went through the tribunal went through a detailed examination looking at what they do, what the warehouse operatives do, and we had independent job evaluation experts from ACAS helping them. They ruled emphatically this is equal work. I mean, in fact, it's a scoring process. The women overscored significantly, but they just need to show it's at least equal. And that was a hugely moral victory, because once you've got that, the burden shifts. It's for Next to explain why, if it's equal, why are you continuing to pay them unequally.
Really good to talk to you. We will keep an eye on what happens next. But Elizabeth George, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.